Hi, it's John Goodman again, and we are talking about what we call in Colorado is the coming soon problem. I'm not sure if that's the best name for it, but that's the name that's taken hold in Colorado. So let's talk about it. What we're going to talk about is what causes problems for sellers and what gets brokers in trouble about coming soon listings. Now, let's start out, however, by talking about what does not get sellers in trouble and what does not get brokers in trouble. And that's a situation where there's a seller who sincerely desires to quietly market the property. And there are all sorts of reasons why a seller might choose to quietly market the property. They may not want the neighbors to know that the seller is selling the property. Maybe the motivation for the sale is that the sellers are getting divorced and the sellers don't want their nosy neighbors asking them questions. It's quite common in commercial real estate, especially in retail property, because a lot of retail owners do not want their tenants to know that the owner of the property may be selling the property. They don't want to spook the tenants. They don't want to discourage the tenants from renewing leases. They don't want to discourage the tenants from exercising options to take on extra space. So there's plenty of reasons why a seller might want to have quiet marketing of property. Now, like many things, there are advantages to those particular sellers who want the quiet marketing, and of course there are disadvantages to the quiet marketing. The disadvantage to the quiet marketing is without exposing the property to the whole market, the seller cannot have confidence that the seller is getting the highest and best buyer. That tends to be less true in commercial real estate because many commercial properties have a very limited pool of buyers who might be interested, for example, in buying the bed and breakfast or the car wash. It's much more true in residential real estate. Without exposing the property to the whole market, the seller can't have confidence that they are getting the highest and best buyer. When the desire to have quiet marketing is being driven by the owner of the property and not the broker just needs to disclose to the owner, hey, you realize there's some downsides to doing this. Confirm that disclosure with an email. Hey, seller, you do realize that with this quiet marketing, we might not find the best buyer. Get buy-in from the seller on that. No mischief for the seller because the seller is choosing to reap the pros and cons of this quiet marketing. No downside for the broker. Another situation where this coming soon phenomenon doesn't get the seller in trouble, doesn't get the broker in trouble, is what I would call a true coming soon. It's not quiet marketing. It's where a owner of a property wants to tease the market with the availability of the property. They want the market to know that this property is coming on the market, but it hasn't yet hit the market. This might be done, for example, by a builder who is building a house and doesn't want it to, quote, hit the market until the house gets to a sufficiently completed stage, a sufficiently juicy stage. The hope is that once the property is ready to be marketed, then there will be a explosion of demand for the property and the competition amongst the buyers will drive up the price. If the property isn't available to be seen by the listing broker's clients or the clients of the listing brokerage firm, then there isn't a conflict of interest there. If it's available to be seen by nobody, then it's not a situation where the listing broker is trying to get both sides of the deal. It's not problematic. Listing brokers, however, in this situation have to be careful because just because the listing broker isn't permitting showings of the property doesn't prevent a buyer from submitting an offer. Of course, that offer has to be submitted to the seller, which if that buyer is part of the listing broker's sphere of influence, raises the specter of a conflict of interest. All right, that brings us to what we're really talking about here. Why is this a big deal? Why is this coming soon marketing a big deal? Sometimes it's not being motivated by the seller. Sometimes it's being driven by the broker. And the idea is in markets that we tend to have in some parts of the country at the point in time we're filming this video in 2016, where there are lots of buyers chasing very low inventory. sometimes just posting a sign will get a property sold. So the broker has an interest in avoiding co-oping brokers, because then, unless there's a variable commission, the listing broker gets to pocket what we say is both sides of the commission. Well, that may be in the broker's best interest, but that's not in the seller's best interest. Without marketing the property to the general market, without putting it in the MLS and doing other things that are customary to market the property in your market, the seller cannot have the confidence that the seller is getting the highest and best buyer. So, when brokers are inclined to do this, at least in the state of Colorado, the state of Colorado does not prohibit marketing to a limited sphere of influence, marketing to quiet marketing. It does not prohibit it. After all, sometimes it's driven by the seller. But what brokers do need to do is disclose the potential conflict of interest to sellers in writing and get approval of the seller, get the informed consent from the seller that the seller accepts the potential downside in exchange for the potential upside. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. As always, remember, it's a complicated world out there. Be careful. Thank you.